Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what Advaita philosophy or the divinity as such, the science of divine nature and the voice of silence of wisdom. But in this particular picture, I have shown only 6 chakras, not 7 chakras, not 10 chakras. And why only 6 chakras? And where did it appear from? And the book is Sat Chakra Nirupana, which is ancient Indian book which I presume was written at the time when Adi Shankaracharya was living. And in connection with this, that Advaita is a terminology, to the best of my knowledge, was described, explained or explored, enumerated by Maharishi Sri Adi Shankaracharya ji, and he comes from Kerala and he lives most of the part in Kashmir, and he died in Kashmir, disappeared in Kashmir. Let's not go into the details as such, but importance let us give it to Sri Adi Shankaracharya and Sat Chakra Nirupana and Viveka Chudamani and many other books which Sri Adi Shankaracharya spoke about it with respect to Advaita. Let me focus only on that. But before that, I had written about Dvaita philosophy yesterday, when I have made it very clear that is the duality or polytheism which all the religions of the world center on. And I do not make an exception, because every religion finally believes in ultimate Brahman, God, or whatever the name you may call it. That is the difference between human being and the divine nature as a two separate things, where the union cannot take place. It's only through the devotion that the human beings are in tune with universal consciousness. It's a bhakti yoga, and the center of consciousness is Vishnu chakra, or rather heart, and as such. But in this particular thing, you are going to see something more than that, which I will explain at the end. So let's take the Ved. There is a separation between God or Brahman and the human being as such. And let's not go into discussion, but through Bhakti Yoga also, many people have done wonderful work, and religions, scriptures, mantras, many things have appeared by different people. Let's give respect to all of them. So religions have taught, but then there are two concepts. It's a divine religion and it's a man-made concept. And as far as I know, to the best of my knowledge, all the religions are man-made concepts, not by the divine nature as such. The separation between the divinity and the human being continues to be in every religion, and it centers on bhakti, devotion, and people can experience Satchitanand, and many wonderful things like a poetry, prose and other things have been done by the people who are experts in Dvaita philosophy. Now, Advaita philosophy is the inner divinity, oneness, monotheism as such, where you come to the human being itself as one represents a universal consciousness, or you can literally call it Aham Brahmasmi. Let's say that we'll start the description step by step and understand this concept very clearly. Now, AI description. Advaita Vedanta is a prominent Hindu philosophical tradition that emphasizes on the non-dual nature of reality, where the individual soul, the Atman, is identical to the ultimate cosmic consciousness of the Brahman. This is one statement from AI which I do agree, but I wonder how many people have experienced that Atma within the human body and universal consciousness called Brahman is identical, are the same. That concept I totally agree. We will go to that in tomorrow's thing when I talk of Treta, the universal consciousness. Now, this is a famous summarized by the phrase Tat Tvamasi, thou art that. This is something which is there in Chandogya Upanishad, not in Ved. But is Tat Tvamasi, that thou art that you are God, is a word Tat Tvamasi? I do not agree. So the question I have raised is Tat Tvamasi, thou art that, is perfect or not perfect, and I say it is not perfect. It is only something which I would explain tomorrow much better in the process. Now come to the question of Advaita philosophy, a description, another part. The tradition heavily influenced by the philosopher Adi Shankaracharya teaches that the perceived separation between the individual and the universe is an illusion. He makes it very clear. Human being and the universal consciousness, the difference between two is a Maya illusion. So let's accept that particular statement. He is somehow not very happy with Dvaita philosophy. The philosophy is to achieve liberation, moksha, by releasing one's true non-dual nature and become one with the ultimate reality, the soul. And I would agree with that. When person becomes himself in tune with the inner consciousness, that person is perfect. Now a question: are Atma and Brahman identical? Is the indwelling soul, which is there in Advaita philosophy, and the universal consciousness Brahman, are they identical? Are they different? That question will be raised now but answered in tomorrow's video in Treta. Now come to the question of understanding some of the statement Adi Shankaracharya has made. Let's give him 100% credit to Adi Shankaracharya ji only on this particular Advaita. The fool thinks I am the body. Intelligent man thinks I am Atma, I am an individual, soul united with the body. So fool, stupid. He is saying he is only physical body, the Jagrat world. And the intelligent person says my Atma and my body are within that. That self-realization is what Adi Shankara is very, very clear. But the wise man, in the greatness of his knowledge and spiritual discrimination, sees the self as the only reality and thinks I am Brahman. Now comes the question. He is very clear that his soul and his body becoming together is like a representation, and I think I agree with that. That is Aham Brahmasmi. I am like the universal consciousness. Unless until you experience that oneness within you, only then you will understand the external world completely. The first Dvaita, both were separate. So the religion to explain to you the concept that you and universal consciousness one is very difficult. But Adi Shankaracharya through Advaita makes it very clear. Person who experiences the Atma within the body is true by himself and is exactly the reflection of the higher soul. But he leaves at that particular stage. He doesn't go further to use that Atma and physical body to experience the divine consciousness or Brahman by and large. Here he doesn't go to that. Where does he go? We are going to see that. Now comes the question. Another statement Sri Adi Shankaracharya is, there is neither death nor birth. He very clear with respect to the soul consciousness. Soul never dies, never takes birth. It is not bound a struggling soul, neither a seeker after the liberation nor the liberated one. In other words, he is talking about Atma, Atma, Atma. Atma cannot die, I cannot dissolve, cannot be burnt, cannot despair, cannot this. It is an eternal thing. But the question comes up, where did Atma come from? That question will be answered in tomorrow's thing. But somewhere Atma is immortal, is indestructible, indisputable, everything. I think that statement is very clearly made by Sri Adi Shankaracharya 3000 years ago. This is ultimate truth. Aham Brahmasmi, Satchit Anand you can call it, is the concept very, very clear. And this particular stage is taken from Viveka Chudamani, which Sri Adi Shankaracharya had written very clearly. As a matter of fact, Viveka Chudamani is one of the most beautiful books I have ever read. So I will not go into details with that, but fact is, he is talking about Atma, indestructible, you cannot be dissolved otherwise, is very clear description in his books, and particularly Viveka Chudamani. Now comes of course, voice of Advaita philosophy is the insight into non-duality. He wants to say very clearly this voice of inner voice. Advaita is inside, and there is no duality. The human being who can be in tune with the inner consciousness within the body of Atma, that person will never make a mistake. He'll be truthful, honest, and totally non-violent and absolutely fine. He would definitely live like a person who is in tune with Brahman. He's a Brahman totally, like Adi Shankaracharya. Anyone like Adi Shankaracharya who is a Brahman, vegetarian, absolutely non-violent, otherwise in tune with inner consciousness, that's the most perfect godly person you can see on the earth, because he is the only one will be able to position to see universal consciousness at a later stage. Maybe he lived only for 32 years, very short age. I think he experienced that, and that beauty has given in his books, which are phenomenal in many things. Hats off to such a person at such a young age. He has given the word Advaita philosophy. He has made the inner soul is perfect. He can be truthful, honest, otherwise. And in the universal, many things he has given in these books, I think those are phenomenal. Now come to the question, another picture of another sage. But here you see the light around the head. That means in this particular person, the light has come to the head. That means he is more enlightened, and all the things is there. I think this is another point which comes from Advaita philosophy. Person who has got Advaita philosophy, his face will be brilliant. He'll have an aura around the head. He'll be more focused on that, because his so-called Kundalini, Antaratma, everything would have come to that stage, and that light around the head is just a reflection of the sun itself. Where Aditi becomes brilliant inside and outside, and you can see the aura. I think that is a brilliant thing as far as Advaita philosophy is concerned. Now, what is Advaita Vedanta? The philosophy which states that there is only one reality behind the universe, and everything is essential one with the reality, much like the oneness of waves and oceans. He is giving an example of an ocean. There are waves of water, but they are separate, but together as one part. The whole thing remains as such. Similarly, human beings are just like the universal consciousness, identical, Aham Brahmasmi, and that they are distinct, but actually they are identical. I think that is the message of Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta means end of Vedas. Vedas take to stage with the wisdom coming up. So it's very clear. Person who experiences the soul within would be able to understand everything about the human body completely, and that is the essence which I am talking about, Advaita philosophy. In Dvaita there is a separation. Here there is oneness. There is a divinity within, and the realizing the divinity, oneness, singularity, monotheism as such is a beautiful point to start the journey thereafter. Now come to question of another statement of Shri Adi Chakra. In this particular thing, he said Brahma is Satyam, is the truth, Jagrat is there, and Jiva is the Para. So in other words, this particular state is about ultimate reality is Brahman, and waking consciousness and other things are identical by and large. God alone is real, the world is unreal, the individual is same, otherwise that. See, in other words, there is a one problem which I face in the whole concept. Okay, universe is truth, but world is not untruth, but is not truthful, is untruthful, unreal, otherwise. That dichotomy is there in this particular concept of Advaita. In Dvaita it is not there because they are separate. The person realizes the matter but sees the other thing, but he is not able to recognize the beauty. I can totally agree. But here saying that it is only the upper one is truthful, Atma is truthful, world is untruthful, is something which I would not personally agree. I am a scientist, I am a mathematician, I am an artist, and I know the world is truthful, science is truthful, and so is the Brahman. When both the sciences are together, then only spiritual scientists would come up. That will be seen in the next tomorrow as a thread. So leaving the dialogue to the next stage, comes up there. Now come to the question of another concept very clearly in Upanishads. They talk of two Atmas within the human body. One Atma is just enlightened, enjoying everything which Adi Shankaracharya is talking about. Second Atma is the physical body which enjoying the fruits of the body. So now there is a difference. And that is what Upanishads are talking about. There are two Atmas. One is enjoying all the things which you are getting, which is Jagrat world within the body, agree. But within that there is another Atma which is witness, enjoying everything and letting it happen the way it is. I think that's the most beautiful Upanishad which talks about these two Atmas by and large. Now come to the question of another important concept. India has given till date three ancient Indian philosophies. The first is the Vedic philosophy of duality, means polytheism. Human being is separate from God, and it centers on Bhakti Yoga, it centers on the religions, that centers on the uniqueness of the higher consciousness and devotion to that and doing everything in the name of God, but somewhere along the separation continues to be there. That human being is separate from God, they cannot connect, they can only have devotion, they can only from heart, they can other things like Vishnu Garanti would be there. So mantra, yantra, tantra, etc., all the religions are talking about all the beauties of Dvaita philosophy only. I make no exception. Every religion is centers on bhakti, devotion, other things, man-made concept, how they will experience and try to be a perfect human being. Somewhere the concept is to become a perfect human being is good enough in the religion as a concern, as and that is not doing something against any other individual being otherwise is a beautiful part of Dvaita philosophy. In Advaita philosophy is oneness within. When soul and person comes, that person becomes more truthful, more honest, more realized in other things. So that is Adi Shankara saying is very clear. So you become perfect first, and only then you will be able to see the second person. These two are very clear. One is a separation, another is oneness, and both have good and prepare you for that. But there is a third Vasishtha Advaita philosophy. Right in the center you can see that is something which I have not been able to understand. What exactly is Vasishtha Advaita trying to explain? Is it something like Advaita, Dvaita as a combination of both, or anything more than that? Unfortunately, from all the scripture which I have read, I have not been able to find a conclusive mathematical design, physics, chemistry, biology and medical science or anything from Vasishtha Advaita. What is so special? What is so significant? And what Ramanujan, these rishis are talking about, I am not very clear. So let me not stand on judgment of that. Let me leave this question which I would answer from my experience in tomorrow's thing in Treta Paravidya or Treta philosophy. Now come to the question of something in this particular picture. I am going to explain which I told in this Sat Chakra Nirupana. So let's stick to that. When you have the Antaratma inside, is able to experience the physical body inside, and that is a statement which I made. Sat Chakra Nirupana, the book written almost same time as Adi Shankaracharya, is the first book after Veda and Upanishads which is very significant in my opinion, is Sat Chakra Nirupana. When Sat Chakra Nirupana talks about it, it talks of 6 goddesses only. 6 chakras only it talks about it. And what are those chakras? Is the Mooladhara Chakra, Swadhisthana Chakra, Nabhi Chakra, Anhata Chakra, Vishuddhi Chakra and Ajna Chakra only. And 6 goddesses are with 1 head, 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads, 5 heads and 6 heads. But is it scientifically relevant? And as a medical person who is a spiritual scientist, I think it's the most relevant book because it's talking about the structure of autonomic nervous system, brain, where center of consciousness is within the human body itself. Right in this particular picture you can see Treta otherwise. You can see Ida and Pingala, 2 nadis which are the sympathetic left and right sympathetic chain, and then you have Sushumna Nadi in the center, and within the Sushumna Nadi you have Brahmani-Nadi, where the energy of the Kundalini moves up, or Ojas to Tejas turns up. The interesting, it's very part. Within the Sushumna Nadi you have Vani-Nadi, within Vani-Nadi you have Surya-Nadi, which is the white matter of the brain stem and the spinal cord as such. Within that is the grey matter, which is Chandra Nadi. Within that is Brahma Nadi as such. Now you within the Brahma Nadi, to reach the Antaratma, to reach to Brahma Nadi, it has to break Brahma Granthi right in the beginning, in the part I have already explained. Once that breaks, then Kundalini or Antaratma or the Prana or Aditi gets into the Brahma-Nadi. When it gets into Brahma-Nadi, it slowly rises to the ventricles of the brain, which are in the brain stem as such, third ventricles. And that is the self-realization Adi Shankaracharya is talking about, and that is a realization within that. When you come to that particular stage, you have experienced the 6 chakras very clearly. But once you within the Atma, you will be able to see the Atma with higher things, which have also been spoken about in Sat Chakra Nirupana. 6 chakras as such, very clear. Then Ida Pingala Nadis, Sushumna Nadi, Vani Nadi, Surya Nadi, Chandra Nadi, Brahma Nadi within that. But when further things, it goes on to talk of the inner chakras more as Gyan Chakra or internal chakras by and large. That means in the ventricle of the brain, you have pineal gland, which can start seeing the Antaratma very clearly. The communication between Antaratma within the human body and the body becomes very clear, because it's right in front of pineal gland in the brain, and that I would call as a Pragyan Chakra for myself, which is gone beyond the autonomic nervous system, endocrine system, to internalize for homeostasis, hypothalamus, and even within the brain as such. Up to that side, I think Advaita philosophy is very, very clear. Once you experience that, you become perfect. Then only you learn that all the atoms, elements, molecules, compounds, everything, you become aware. And how they give you homeostasis, how they give you Satchit Anand, how they give you Satchit Anand, everything by and large. You can become a perfect human being by that time. You become a truthful person, non-violence, absolutely clear, by realizing 6 chakras and going Atma within the ventricles. And there where you realize the Vaikuntha is the ventricles, where you realize that you come to the stage of realizing, and that with Advaita philosophy is very, very clear. Now I make it very clear. For any human being to achieve that particular 6 state chakras and then ventricles of the brain as a Vaikuntha, you will be able to see Vishnu very, very clearly. By the time you would have even understood Brahma very clear and Vishnu very clear in that particular thing. Brahma Granthi and Vishnu Granthi had been broken with the devotion of Advaita philosophy and perfection of Advaita philosophy. You come to that stage. I think that is the first realization before you can move on to further, to move from 6 chakras to 10.344 chakras or 108 chakras or even 10 hand chakras or the entire universe, and then move on to the much higher levels of consciousness, to the entire universe, entire divinity, the so-called Brahman, from Nirankar Nirgun Brahman to Sakar Sargun Brahman to Anubhav Brahman, to all the higher things. How you can experience all that higher consciousness within the physical body and understand the higher levels, and in the process you understand every aspect of the science, every aspect of spirituality, every aspect of that. That's the time when they both become external world, internal world one. But that will be clarity, will be seen in the next thing. But up to this, a person is able to see that within himself and become Aham Brahmasmi. And Adi Shankaracharya talk about Advaita, that extent, excellent to that extent. But to go further, the man having achieved that Satchit Anand within himself should look at, and I am sure, had Sri Adi Shankaracharya lived beyond 32 years, not disappeared in the Himalayas, maybe he would have come to given this particular knowledge which I am privileged for the history of mankind for the first time to bring physical human body perfection, Antaratma perfection, and the divine conscious perfection, and seeing the divine mathematics. In the process, I will be able to explain Tat Tvam Asi is the mathematical design, not I am that God. And that mathematical is Divyank, which you are going to see much more clearly as you come, and how the slowly unfolding of external world separation to internal world completion, and then seeing both things in mathematical, physics, chemistry, biology, medical sciences is something you are going to see as an Akhand Yogi, as a Tyagi, Vairagi, Sannyasi. Everything comes to emerge one. So man, human in the form, becomes a walking, talking encyclopedia. He knows all the 64 arts and other things. That beauty you're going to see in tomorrow's thing much more clearly. So till such time, just wait and see. Understand Dvait and Advait completely, so that you go into Trait very clearly when you come to that particular stage through an experience, and then showing the world how perfect is Trait, where completion comes. And that is the divine design. It is not a man-made religion. And that is the concept which is talking about Sanatana Dharma as a Brahman from the very beginning. So you are going to see Nirankar, Nirgun, Brahman, and rise to that level, and know the entire universe A to Z. In the process, you will be able to understand Rudra Granthi better. You will be able to see Akhand Brahman, Shivling, everything clearly. You will see the mathematical design with which the entire universe is done, maybe for the first time, as a one comprehensive document. I'll try to make it as simple as possible. At least raise the question so that you can see the beauty altogether. I think that's enough. Thank you very much.